Welcome to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. I'm Mike Calabrese, joined by Action Network's top capper, Sean Zerillo, to break down Monday night's championship series in the AL and NL. Here we are on October 13th. We have critical baseball, only 2 games today, and into the evening, it's like we're getting at the very end of this option where you have multiple games. First of all, before we even get into anything, how are you, emotionally with this marathon of a season? We've had so many day games throughout the year. We've had so many episodes where you're pulling from a menu of double-digit games. Now you're down to just 2 here in the AL and NLCS. Is that good? Is that bad? How are you feeling coming into this? And is it easier or harder for you to be able to just zero in on 2 games as opposed to a full slate?
It's certainly nicer to zero in on 2 games, but I would say I'm spending like the exact same amount of time as I would for a 15-game slate, worrying about these 2 games and making sure I have every aspect of it analyzed, taking a look at all the futures markets for each individual series as well, checking the correct score odds and series spreads and all that. So there's definitely just a lot more to check that sort of, distributes my time over the same amount of time in different ways. But yeah, certainly at maximum 4 more days of 4 more days of 2 baseball games, at minimum 1. And if the Jays win 1 more game, we get at least 2. So hopefully, for my Mariners futures purposes, there's actually not too many more days with 2+ baseball games on it. But yeah, definitely coming down to the wire here. Have our Mariners and Dodgers futures very much alive. The Jays were the first team I highlighted as a potential futures value in the preseason as well. I went back to my preseason futures piece and I talked about the fact that there was obvious pennant, World Series value, divisional value on the Jays. Gave out their win total, obviously did not bet any of the other 3, but would be in a very good position if I had both Jays and Mariners futures. But yeah, certainly happy to watch Seattle steal that game 1 last night. That was crucial for them. I mean, absolutely massive. That was the game where they will be the biggest underdog at any point in the series. Every other game should be closer to a coin flip, if not outright favor Seattle. They're going to be able to line up their pitching really well at home against Toronto's starting staff too. So massive upset, in my opinion, for the Jays in game 1. Not so much for the game 1 line, but for the series price in general.
You mentioned the M's stealing game 1. They're now 3 games away, or at least 3 wins away from their first trip to the World Series. They're handing the ball to Logan Gilbert here. He's already played a big part in their postseason success. He threw a gem in game 3, 6 innings, 7 Ks, 1 earned, grabbing the win there. And then he bounced back 3 days later and chipped in 2 scoreless innings during that marathon extra inning win over Detroit. He threw 34 pitches there in relief. So in less than a week, he had a full start and then extended relief work. And now he's back to the hill on 2 days rest. By comparison, Trey Yesavage is as fresh as a daisy. No other way to put it. He pitched 8 days ago against the Yankees, and the former top prospect put it all together, struck out 11 in just 5 1/3 innings worth of work during a blowout win over the Yanks 13-7. So how are you attacking this one, starting with the pitching matchup?
Yeah, so in terms of Yesavage versus Gilbert, you also have to compare it to Yesavage versus Luis Castillo, because Castillo only threw 14 pitches after Gilbert threw 34 in game 5 against the Tigers. It was widely believed that Castillo would start game 2 here. The game 5 day was a throwing day for both Gilbert and Castillo. So technically they would have been throwing bullpens anyway. I doubt Gilbert would have thrown 34 high stress pitches with runners on base behind him in the bullpen. So it is a little bit surprising that the guy who threw more stressful workload 2 days ago, but is starting technically 6 days after his last start. It is a little surprising that he got the nod over Castillo, but with the Jays or with the Mariners up 1-0, I think you just want to step on their throats. And Castillo has very notable home road splits, as does Brian Wu, who we'll likely see at some point in this series, as does Bryce Miller, who pitched extremely well in game 1. Kirby and Gilbert have a little bit of a lesser differential home road than the other 3. So the Mariners have plenty of starting pitching and plenty of options for the remainder of this series. Yes, there's a chance that Gilbert is on reduced pitch count and or reduced quality as a result of pitching a couple days ago. But 8 days of rest isn't necessarily great for a pitcher either. 5-6 days of rest, these guys, is their normal schedule. There's actually data. Once you get out to 7+, 8 days plus of rest, guys actually decline in effectiveness. You get out of rhythm, from your normal routine. You get out of rhythm from your arm slot, etc. And Yay Savage, still just 22 years old, was super impressive in that start against the Yankees. I bet him in that start against the Yankees. We bet the Jays at plus money. I don't think you can invest here in Yay Savage at minus 120 if you did not invest in Yay Savage at plus 120. And regardless, I think this game is right around a coin flip. I make the Mariners around plus 101. I'd bet them down to plus 105. If Castillo were starting, I think the line is fine. I would have made the Jays around minus 120 with Castillo against Yay Savage. With Gilbert going against Yay Savage, it's right around a pick 'em for me. And if this game were in Seattle, I'd make the Mariners around 56%, 57%. So definitely like the Mariners in game 2 to extend out their lead in this series, to go home up 2-0 and have an absolutely raucous crowd and environment on Wednesday. They did give them like a 2 p.m. start today, local time, which is pretty unfortunate. You can't be doing that to the people in the Pacific Northwest. 2 p.m. on a Monday for game 2 of the ALCS is just absolutely egregious. So hopefully all the kids in schools are going to get access to some screens. I know the Mariners fandom is absolutely rabid right now, and everybody's all in on this team. So hopefully the kids get to watch the game at school today, or at least get picked up early, because that would be an absolute travesty if not. But just to go back to the pitching matchup, and Gilbert is one of the best pitchers on the planet. He's one of the best pitchers in my model. I said coming into the year, I rated him about on par with Skeens and Skubal. He's not there anymore, but he's still damn close. He's one of the 5 or 6 best starting pitchers in baseball, in my opinion. This year, expected FIP, 3.2. Strikeout minus walk, 24%. Yay Savage, in a limited sample, strikeout minus walk of 14.5%. The more concerning aspect, an 11% walk rate in the minors, 10.5% in the majors, or I got those backwards, 10.5% in minors, 11.3% in a limited major league sample, but also a 93 location plus rating. He has very good stuff. He is an elite splitter, 122 stuff plus on the splitter. But if a team comes out with a approach to just spit at it or just not swing and make him throw strikes, I think this guy is gettable in terms of getting on base, getting walks, racking up the pitch count, and getting him out of the game. The Yankees were swinging through everything. It's important to note, Yay Savage's last start came at home. This one comes at home. The Yankees did not have time to prepare for him with the traject pitching machine that I cited last week that helps guys prepare, particularly for dudes who they've not seen before. Neither the Mariners or Yankees had seen Yay Savage this season. And I do think the first time through the order, there's certainly going to be an adjustment period. And I'm expecting low scoring early in this game. Yay Savage, Gilbert, Gilbert probably at his most effective in the early innings, may wear down potentially if he does wear down, a little bit later in the game, second, third time through the order. Yay Savage, I think, is going to get his best looks like most pitchers would first time through the order against this lineup. And then as they see him more, they should be able to adjust and potentially get him to throw pitches outside the zone. So a live over here certainly intrigues me. I would have bet the over if it was Yay Savage against Castillo. I would have made it closer to 8.4 with Castillo against Yay Savage. I make it right around 7.5, 7.4, like almost a full run lower with Gilbert going against Yay Savage, because it does change the Mariners pitching plan too. I anticipated in game 1 after Bryce Miller, I'm sure most people did, you would get some combination of Miller for 4 innings and then Emerson Hancock and Luke Jackson. Another one of the Mariners B relievers too, whose name is escaping me as well, but you wouldn't have seen the group that you saw in game 5. You would have seen all the other guys. Now they kind of have options tonight because they only threw 100 pitches total as a staff last night. Fun fact, the Mariners threw 103 sliders in game 5 against the Tigers. They threw, I believe, 100 pitches against the Blue Jays last night. So they threw more sliders in game 5 against the Tigers alone than they threw pitches total in game 1 of the ALCS. Put it all together. Mariners better bullpen by about a half a run. They have the better offense considering Bo Bichette is on the IL. These teams were tied on the year against right-handed pitching, but no Bichette. And I would take Seattle down to plus 105 for game 2. So no bet on the total. Make it 7.4. Do you like the live over 6.5 after first time through the order for these teams? Hopefully it's even lower by that point, maybe 6, 5.5. And then Seattle down to plus 105, all for game 2. And I should just mention the series line as well. They opened around a pick'em, but people saw the pitching situation. You could see Miller would end up starting game 1. So the Jays actually got out to like minus 140, Seattle plus 120, well, here's how big the series win probability shifted. Normally a win in a 7-game series is worth like 17 to 19%, 15 to 19% for either given side who wins. The Mariners moved from plus 140, which is about 45%, to minus 225, even minus 240, which is nearly a 25% swing in series win probability. So that was a massive upset, like I said, not just for the game one, but for the series outlook in general, because they don't even have to pitch Miller again now. Miller's pitched really well, but they can go Gilbert, Castillo, Kirby, Wu, Gilbert, and then everybody in game 7. So Seattle's pitching advantage for the remainder of the series is pretty substantial compared to what they had in game 1.
I think you forced my hand here, Sean. As you know, I'm 2-0 on my picks for the entire season because I only gave out a pair in the last episode for our baseball postseason coverage. But I had this one on the shelf. I was leaning in this direction, and then you walked through all the points that just had me nodding along when it comes to Ye Savage going 6 up, 6 down to start the game at plus 330 out in the market. They haven't seen this guy. I know exactly what his pitch mix is going to be. He only throws 3, and his splitter has been basically unhittable in a limited sample size. Also, his experience at the college level, having watched him pitch there, the former East Carolina Pirate was just absolutely electric. I like the opportunity for him to basically overwhelm these guys early, and then for the scoring to open up. If I had to also tag something on a live over, let's say the 3rd or 4th inning, wait for it. If there's only 1 or 2 runs scored at that point, I think things could really open up. We've seen this with the Jays bullpen in this postseason. So what do you think about that, particularly that price point, plus 330 for a pitcher who is coming off an absolute gem, but only pitched 5 1/3? There's all kinds of strikeout props that are pretty juicy out there, but my worry is with a young pitcher like this, he potentially could be on a short leash. So you're just not going to get the at-bats face to be able to get to a 6 or 7 strikeout threshold.
Yeah, his outs prop is 13.5, so market doesn't think he's going to go 5 innings, which means, if he knows going into the game and there's an off day on Tuesday. So both starting pitchers, both managers could be, both starting pitchers could come out relatively early. Both managers can be a little bit more aggressive with their bullpens ahead of an off day. But if they know that going into the game, they can air it out a little bit more too. So that's something I've discussed throughout the playoffs. Like if you're going shorter, you can throw a little bit harder and max effort it because you're on a certain pitch count limit. The bet I'd combine that with is Ye Savage over 1.5 walks, which is also plus money. It's plus 102. If guys are getting on base against him, it's probably going to be via the walk. As I said, he has really good stuff. It's tough to square him up, but he does throw pitches outside of the zone. He throws a lot of splitters in the dirt, and the best way to get on base against him is probably via the walk. So I do think Ye Savage to walk 2 batters at plus money tonight would be one of the props, or I guess probably the only pitching prop that stood out to me. The other would be Gilbert over 14.5 outs at minus 145. I just think that's too short of a line for him. I think people are looking at this start for Gilbert as a short rest start. I don't necessarily think that's the case. Yes, he did throw a little bit more probably in that game 5 than he would have thrown in a bullpen, throw a little bit more stressful innings than he would have thrown in a bullpen. But I still think they're lining him up for games 2 and game 6 in the series. They have plenty of other starters to get through games 3, 4, and 5. So I think Gilbert goes pretty normally tonight in terms of his pitch count, 90 pitches, 100 pitches. I think that's pretty much on the table for him. So Gilbert over 14.5 outs, Priester over 1.5 walks, about minus 150, plus 105 respectively. And as I said, I think that Ye Savage over 1.5 walks works in concert with the 6 up, 6 down, because I think he either walks somebody in the first 6 hitters, gets all 6 of them out, or there's an error. Probably not an error though. That would be the worst way to lose it, right? Especially with the best.
Please don't put that out into the universe.
So yeah, that's the main way I see that not hitting is him walking one of the first 6 hitters.
Before we move on, don't forget to sign up for Action Network Pro for real-time pick alerts from experts like Sean, Kyle Murray, Derek Carty, and our entire Action Network team. Plus, you can also access our pro projections powered by Sean Kerner and our predictive analytics team. Just go to actionnetwork.com/pro and get $20 off the annual price with the promo code PAYOFF20. So don't miss out on the best bets at the best prices. Visit actionnetwork.com/pro and use promo code PAYOFF20 to get $20 off a year of Action Pro. All right, we turn to the National League, the Dodgers and the Brewers. The Dodgers' title defense continues. The Brew Crew hoping to return to the Fall Classic for the first time in 43 years. And a little gamesmanship right from the jump here from the Brewers. They close out the Cubs on Saturday, but still have not announced a Game 1 starter. The Dodgers are sending Blake Snell to the hill. The veteran lefty has been a bullpen savior for the Dodgers this fall. 2 starts in the postseason, 13 innings pitched, 18 Ks, just 2 earned in those starts. Since mid-September, he's been missing bats at one of the best rates of his entire career. So he's someone that not only can be relied on, but not putting many batters on base. Now, Sean, you're on the under here. What are you envisioning game script wise from Chris Hook and Pat Murphy? That would be the pitching coach and the manager for the Brewers. A pure bullpen game seems to be on deck, or is that smoke and mirrors? Are we going to get some kind of starter? It's not going to be Peralta because he's going to be the Game 2 starter, and this would have been him on 3 days rest. But are there any aces up their sleeve that they can pull out, or do you think it's just going to be a hodgepodge of 6 or 7 pitchers?
Yeah, they're going to start one of their lefties, either Koenig or Ashby. I don't know how many times Koenig has started this year. I think it was definitely a couple, but in the playoffs, we've seen Ashby now multiple times as an opener. Let's see Koenig's 2025 appearances. He did not start a game this year. He started 6 last year out of 55 appearances, so he's done it. They've used Ashby a ton. I could see it being Koenig, but I think one of Koenig or Ashby opens this game to try to get Ohtani, Freeman, maybe as deep as Max Muncy. That seems less likely, but at least Quintana and Freeman at the top of the order they want to neutralize, or Freeman and Ohtani. I said Quintana. That's the worry, is that they do try to start Jose Quintana and get away with one here. I don't see that happening. You have to go with one of your lefty relievers, followed by Quinn Priester for a bulk 3-4 inning appearance, at least get through the lineup 1 or 2 times. But essentially, Murphy's been able to rotate or alternate between Freddie Peralta starts and bullpen games for now 4 games in a row, 5 games in a row. Because you have another off day. They keep getting bullpen game, off day, Freddie Peralta start, off day, bullpen game, off day. Now you get bullpen game, Freddie Peralta start, off day, right? So you can be pretty aggressive with your bullpen here, because you only need a handful of relievers, hopefully, for their sake, behind Freddie Peralta tomorrow. You can, in theory, continue to bullpen it out. You're not going to get Mizorowski, obviously, today. I would project Mizorowski to start game 3, game 4, one of those 2 starts. They need Miz to be a starting pitcher for them, essentially, to win this series or have a significant chance. I upgraded my chances for the Brewers based upon how Miz pitched in game 5 against the Cubs. I think he's giving them, along with their bullpen, like another high-quality caliber starting pitcher. It's probably the most effective pitching they're going to have in any game. Is Miz and the bullpen. That's probably even more effective than Peralta. So I think the Brewers have the opportunity to bullpen it again here. The caveat being, there will be a game, or maybe even 2 in this series, where somebody falls behind and just throws out the B relievers, and one of these teams wins 8-1, 9-1. The Dodgers, if you followed the Dodgers in the playoffs last year, the Dodgers sacrificed games in multiple series where they were just like, we don't have the arms today. We're just going to let somebody eat it, and fell behind. And they're like, great, we're going to lose 10-1 today and beat you tomorrow. So that is the concern later on in this series. I would be cautious betting the unders later on in this series, because at some point there's going to be a pitcher who gets just kept out there as a sacrificial lamb, like Kershaw was to a degree in the last start, or in his last appearance against the Phillies. That was a little bit more egregious because that game was still within reach. But I really do think there's going to be a game that looks under that ends up bleeding it away because one team just happens to be out to a lead and the other team doesn't want to use their pitchers. Now tonight for game 1, when it's tied and either team is going to want to keep it close, either team is, obviously fighting for the game 1 lead, you will see aggressive bullpen deployment for both teams. But particularly for Milwaukee, who, as I said, should probably end up starting one of their left-handed relievers. Then they'll go to Priester. Then they'll pick another spot where they're going to bring in their lefties. Maybe they use Jose Quintana out of the bullpen at some point, especially with Mizorowski. They're going to trust as their 3rd starter. I think they can end up using Chad Patrick as a starter in this series as well. So maybe that gives you the option to use Jose Quintana out of the bullpen as a left-handed arm, which you could use in the series. Robert Gasser, they have virtually no trust in. He's essentially their mop-up guy. So You're not going to use him as a lefty for significant innings. And all of this is to say, the Phillies in every game against the Dodgers were throwing Luzardo. They threw Ranger Suarez for significant innings. They threw Christopher Sanchez for significant innings. 3 lefties with relatively low arm angles who Ohtani really struggled with. Now they're getting mostly right-handed pitching in this series. Mariners and Jays as well, all right-handed starters throughout that series. The Dodgers, aside from Blake Snell, going to be throwing mostly right-handed pitching. So a lot of right-handed pitching in the ALCS and the NLCS. I do think that helps the Dodgers immensely because Ohtani should be able to break out if he's not going to be facing all of these left-handed at-bats from low arm angles. I believe one of Koenig and Ashby have the type of arm angle that troubles him. That's it, though. There's really not too many threatening pieces to shut down Ohtani and the other Dodgers left-handed bats. And I think that is ultimately what carries them through the series. Now, in terms of a series projection, let me give out the game one, then I'll back up to the series. I like the under in game one. As Mike said, 8 minus 115. You could take it down to 7.5 at minus 105. The market does keep pushing the 8 down and keep knocking the 7 up. So somebody likes over 7.5. I'm willing to take the under 7.5, but try to bet the 8s where you can because somebody really does keep betting the over 7.5. We'll see if that neutralizes closer to game time. But this is clearly a contrarian under. The majority of the market, majority of the ticket splits, etc., on the over, as it has been throughout the playoffs. But I think people expecting, the Brewers pitching usage, the way Preuster got blown up at game 2 at Wrigley, I think all that sort of factors into people expecting runs here. I think Snell shuts them down. And I think the Brewers bullpenned enough to keep this game under. So under 7.5 to minus 105, I project this closer to 7.15. And then for the series, I've seen projections, and I gave out the Dodgers. I said the Dodgers would be north of 70% against both Milwaukee or Chicago. Well, that was an initial projection that I then revised based upon how well the Miz pitched. But also, I cited Fangraphs, ATC, Pacoda, Oopsie, all had the Dodgers at 70% plus against the Brewers. And that does remain the case, but I should let people know that those projections, when you take the playoff odds projections for Fangraphs, Oopsie, any of those, the bat, those are based off of team quality. Those are not based on individual game-by-game simulations. So when you project and look at overall team quality, sure, the Dodgers maybe are 70% better, or 40% better than the Brewers. But when you do a individual game-by-game projection, you can get it much closer to 55%, 60% for the series. I'm still at 67%, but looking at Fangraphs, and this is what I wanted to highlight. Fangraphs offers you a playoff odds projection, and their playoff odds projection has the Dodgers at, just to confirm, 71.4%, but they also have a Zips postseason game-by-games odds calculator, and they just have the Dodgers at 54% by that calculator. Blake Snell versus bullpen game, Yamamoto versus Peralta, Ohtani versus Mizurowski, Glasnow versus Priester in game 4 is what they have. Snell, Quintana, Yama Peralta, Ohtani, Mizurowski. That's how they have the pitching matchups lined up. And when you factor in more Mizurowski, more bullpen for the Brewers, you get rid of their lesser pitchers. You don't start Quintana. I don't even know why they have Quintana starting a game because I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's likelier to be a bullpen game in Chad Patrick. They have, though, the Dodgers at just 54%. I have the Dodgers at 67%. So there's no value for me technically on their series line. I make them about minus 208. The best I saw was minus 200, but they did open at minus 180 and they got bet up to minus 200. So they were the movement side of the market pre-series. The Brewers pitching plan is a bit of a mystery for game 1. Their best pitcher is going to throw in game 2. And the Brewers' best chances to win games in the series are going to come in games 2, 6, and 7. Peralta start, bullpen start at home. But in order to survive to game 6, you need to steal game 1 or game 3, 4, or 5, right? In Los Angeles, this is probably their best chance to do so. I think Murphy has the bullpen here pretty aggressively again in game 1. As I said, Peralta game 2. Then you get an off day as well. So under, but for the series, the Dodgers, I make about minus 208. No bet, no value for me on either side of it. If you got minus 190, I would have played the Dodgers still. Minus 180 at open was fine. Dodgers to win 4-1 is plus 375. I think that's pretty close to being in range. Actually, Mariners to win 4-1 as well was also pretty close to being in range too. But yeah, in terms of the series props, I don't see enough value on either series to fire. I do show slight edge on both the Mariners and Dodgers, as I have shown throughout the postseason. So that's really no surprise to me. Futures are in pretty good position. Hopefully they both get to the window. But in terms of the Tuesday or the Monday bets, not Tuesday yet. Mariners down to plus 105, Dodgers under 7.5, down to minus 105. And then we're going to mess around with the prop market as well. Those Gay Savage walks I said looked interesting. Gilbert over outs. Won't have any Brewers pitching props, probably. With regard to Snell strikeouts, Brewers are really tough to strike out against left-handed pitching. Number 1 rate in September against left-handed pitching, and number 1 lowest strikeout rate against lefties in September. So Snell's strikeout total seemed pretty low today. I might actually zag and go over there if anything, but I'm not super inclined to play the props at this stage. I think these lines are pretty sharp with just 2 games on the board. Just wanted to potentially toss out some leans there. I'll see what Action Labs has in terms of projections today. I didn't see any initial edges at open. They have Snell at 6.3 strikeouts, Gilbert at 4.6 strikeouts, Yay Savage at 5.3. So all like right on the nose with the market there. But if you go on the Action app, if you click on the props tabs in the individual game pages, Sean Kerner, our predictive analytics team, they have projected edges for every market, RBIs, runs, etc. I think those ribby projections are oftentimes where the value lies. Even though I like the unders in these games, I'm sure there's value on somebody to drive in a run today. So definitely make sure to check those out. I look at those every single day now, especially come playoff time, now that it's only a couple games. Action Network app, game page, individual game pages, click on the props tab, and it'll show you the biggest projected edges for all the props on the slate. Don't take my opinion for props. Trust our predictive analytics people.
That'll do it for today's episode of Payoff Pitch. Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to tail some of the bets that you heard in today's episode, look for the quick slip links in the episode description. Don't forget to download the free award-winning Action Network app and leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to the podcast. Also, check out our new AI quick slip bot on X. Just tag Playbook at Playbook and tell it to grab whatever bets you're looking for, and it'll create quick slip links for you in a matter of seconds. It also does instantaneous comparison shopping, so you're going to get the best prices there. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of Payoff Pitch, talking Peralta versus Yamamoto in Game 2, Dodgers Brewers. For Sean Zerillo, I'm Mike Calabrese. Thanks for listening to Payoff Pitch, Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast. And as always, best of luck with all your bets.